broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Ford, Marketing Director at America's Charities. Thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully none of you were impacted by Hurricane Harvey or Irma and your friends and family are all safe. There's been tons of media coverage and outpouring of community support and first responders on the ground helping those who were affected. But what happens when the media moves on to the next big story and first responders leave the scene? Unfortunately, that's when the families and communities affected by these storms get the least support, but need it most. Businesses are uniquely positioned to solve this problem and fill this gap, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So thank you again for joining us. We will be recording today's webinar, and we're going to explain why long-term disaster recovery support is so important, how businesses can tap into the power of employee giving and matching gifts. And here to share their expertise are America's Charities President and CEO, Jim Starr, and Bob Ottenhoff, President and CEO of the Center for Disaster Philanthropy. Jim has more than 25 years experience in the nonprofit and healthcare sectors, including serving the mission of the American Red Cross prior to taking the helm at America's Charities. And prior to joining the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, Bob spent a decade as president and CEO of GuideStar, an industry leader helping donors make more informed and strategic philanthropic decisions. These two nonprofit industry veterans have a wealth of knowledge to share with us, and so with that, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Bob, who will start us off about the importance of long-term disaster recovery support. Bob?
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah and Jim, for inviting me to this important webinar. It's amazing when there's a disaster just how generous American companies can be. You can see a few of the stats here on this slide. So far, companies have pledged more than $157 million to Hurricane Harvey, and that's through September 3rd. I'm sure it's much, much higher than that. There's an incredible outpouring of support around Harvey, and when companies pledge, they do so quickly, and they do so in a very responsive kind of way. Same thing happened with Sandy. More than $140 million raised within the first 6 months came from the corporate sector. And Katrina and Rita, two amazing, the biggest disaster ever to hit the United States, more than $1 billion in business aid within the first 6 months of each disaster. So we know when disasters occur, we can count on the business community. But this next slide will show that about 70 to 80% of that money donated in the wake of disaster goes to immediate relief. And we know that because every year the Center for Disaster Philanthropy publishes an annual report with the Foundation Center called the State of Disaster Philanthropy. It differs a little bit from year to year, but not all that much. Most of the giving is done very quickly, and it's done within the first month or so. And then it dwindles very quickly after that. And the problem with that is the long-term costs are probably going to go on for months and maybe even for years, particularly in the case of Harvey where there was so much flooding done. It's going to take months and months to rebuild schools, to get businesses back up again, to get people back in their houses. We know that there are hundreds of thousands of people who have been affected by the housing situation. And that also includes agriculture, energy, labor, and so forth. So this is a recovery that's going to take many, many years. Next slide. And so what to do? What to do when you see those pictures on television or you read about it in the newspaper? You want to do something, and you want to do it right now. And your board wants you to act now. Your staff, sometimes even your supply chain wants you to do something right now. And so in this next slide, we've got a solution where we've teamed up together, the America's Charities Disaster Recovery Fund, working together with the Center for Disaster Philanthropy. It gives you a chance for your company and your employees to give immediately, to act while you're so motivated to do something. But it also gives us then time to identify where the funding gaps are, where nobody else is funding, where insurance doesn't cover or FEMA doesn't cover. Gives us a chance to be more strategic, more effective in where those dollars are ultimately invested. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Jim, who's going to give you more details about why our approach is to look at midterm and long-term recovery.
So, Bob, thank you. And just to reiterate, we started our Disaster Recovery Fund in partnership with the Center for Disaster Philanthropy in order to present individuals and our clients and other organizations an opportunity to address the long-term and, as Bob mentioned, often overlooked impact of disasters. And we know just through our own engagement, our own interactions, and our own experience that companies and their employees, they want to help. But they want to help in a smart and also convenient way. They want to make sure that their dollars that they are investing in the disaster response and recovery are widely spent, that they are addressing known needs, and that truly will make a difference in the lives of those that have been impacted. We also know just through our own work that giving through the workplace is convenient and also can be very impactful for employees. So our research, next slide, we've demonstrated through our own research as well as our own experience that disasters are a very good opportunity to leverage a employee giving program coupled with the matching gift program as well. As Bob had mentioned, companies, their leadership, their board, their employees, their clients, their supply chain, anybody and everybody that's associated with the organization typically expects a company to have some measure of response to a disaster. And when they do that, and if they do it smartly and do it well, that can go a long ways towards building goodwill, both in their marketplace as well as with their workforce and their stakeholders. Employees are also looking to their employers to help amplify and leverage their own philanthropy. We know that from research that's been done by Cone Communications, as well as through our own snapshot research, where our most recent research conducted this year shows that about half of employees actually want to donate through their employee giving programs. And they want to do that because, one, it's convenient for them to do so. Two, it gives them an opportunity to really leverage their giving because it's a repeated donation throughout the year if they're donating through payroll deduction. And their impact can be amplified through employee programs such as an employer match and matching gifts. And we believe that the workplace is a great place to leverage individuals' desire to want to impact disaster recovery and to leverage the resources that their company has provided them. So we've made it easy to start to get engaged. Next slide, Sarah. There's a couple of ways that we can do that. One is we've created disaster recovery funds in partnership with the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, both for Hurricane Harvey and for Hurricane Irma. You can find those at www.charities.org/funds. You'll find both of those funds there. It's an easy way to get people engaged. You can point them right to the site. You can also feature our funds, or for that matter, any vetted and trusted nonprofit that is engaged in the recovery effort on your own workplace giving platform. Well, American Charities does offer our own employee giving and volunteering technology solutions. Our funds are platform agnostic, meaning that they can be placed on any workplace giving platform. So there are, it's actually rather easy to get set up and started. Even if you don't have a workplace giving program, there are resources there available to you through America's Charities through the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, as well as through other sources as well. I think the one important factor to make sure that you do is to do your research to understand how charities are being vetted so that you are sponsoring or supporting established causes. Disasters are a frequent time when many funds will start to pop up that don't have any history, that have a vague mission, and quite potentially could be a scam as well. So we'd like to direct you to some more resources on the next slide that can help you take action. The Disaster Philanthropy Playbook was created by the Center for Disaster Philanthropy and is available on their website, as well as the report that Bob had mentioned earlier on measuring the state of disaster philanthropy. It's important that you do get educated in supporting disaster relief and recovery issues so that you can be an educated consumer as you look for opportunities and resources for your own organization, for yourself, and for your employees. And then we have some information that's available to you as well about the importance of employee giving programs by America's Charities. So we encourage you to do your homework, take advantage of the resources that are out there, and make well-informed decisions. With that, Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Bob and Jim. And we will be sharing a copy of this presentation with all of you after this webinar is over. So you'll be able to have a direct copy of all these wonderful links so that you can really dig in deep and get a better understanding of what these resources have to offer. We do have some time for questions at the end if anyone wants to ask Bob or Jim about how our fund works, how Center for Disaster Philanthropy finds the nonprofits to support through the fund, any questions about workplace giving and how to support the fund through workplace giving. So I'll just give you a moment to ask your questions. Okay, we do have a question for Bob. Bob, could you give us a little bit more detail about how Center of Disaster Philanthropy goes about choosing the nonprofits supported through this fund? Do you work with local nonprofits, or how does that selection process take place?
Sure. So this is a process that we take a great deal of care with, and something that takes a little bit of time. So what we'll normally do is start by forming a committee composed of subject matter experts and then also experts familiar with that area. And so this might include a leader of a nonprofit organization, a well-known scholar on the subject, someone who's worked with this type of disaster before. So these are experienced people who really know the territory, they know the subject matter, they know the gaps that are likely to arise. And when I say gaps, I really see disaster funding as sort of a mosaic, because we know FEMA will have its role to play, other federal agencies will be doing things, state agencies will be doing things, there'll be insurance money coming into it. So we want to make sure that these very scarce but critically important philanthropic dollars are spent wisely, are spent strategically, that they fill in some of the gaps that nobody else is taking care of. We'll also talk to other donors to find out what they're doing, see where their interests lie. We'll talk to nonprofits who are doing the work to find out where their biggest gaps are, where the most where they most need help. We'll often send a team of some of the CDP staff to also go into the field to do additional research. So it's only after taking all these very careful steps that we'll begin to make decisions about how to allocate these donor dollars. And we normally will start to do this 4 to 6 months after the disaster has occurred. Sometimes we'll make an exception and put something in a little sooner if we see a special need around casework management and so forth. But generally, our funds will go out 4, 5, 6, even 12 months out after the disaster has occurred, when the work is really getting done, where some of the mental health issues are starting to show up, where the housing issues are more clear, where the economic issues are beginning to clarify a little bit. So that's basically, Sarah, the steps we take and how we allocate the dollars.
Okay, thank you so much, Bob. I don't see any other questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap up and let everyone have more time back into their day. Thank you again, Bob and Jim, for sharing your expertise with us today. And thank you, everyone who attended our webinar today. We'll be sharing a copy of this recording and presentation with you shortly. Thank you.